To hell with the date on your birth certificate. Let's talk about what we have in common across generations. Life, sex, and tech at any age. Welcome to Age Blind with Nancy.Shenker.
Hey, boys and girls, it's Nancy.Shenker of Age Blind. And I said boys and girls because the leader of our country has established that there are only two genders. So sorry if you're somewhere in between. It's not my rules. Anyway, that's a good lead-in because today's topic is what's your love or lust style? So everything having to do with love, lust, hookups, dating, romance, all of the above. So I have a very, very eclectic group. This is what I call a SLTbox episode. SALT, SLT, standing for sex, life, and tech across the generations. And today, our guests range in age, as they often do, from 20s up to almost 70. That would be moi. I've been speaking French this month in honor of the season of romance. Not really. My French is pretty awful. But we just pick a random topic. And in this case, as I said, it's life, sex, and tech across the generations. But specifically today, it's sex and life. So let's just jump right in. Kyle, why don't we start with you, my wing person, or my wing man, since you identify as a man.
Yes, I do.
Even though you're wearing those very, very gay glasses.
Hey, men can be gay. That's fine.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about myself. I'm Kyle. I am a man. I am Nancy's podcast producer. There we go.
He's a Robin Quivers to my Howard Stern. And Tina, who I think I met you on Facebook or through some group that we are both a member of. So thank you so much. Do tell. What do you do? Who are you?
I'm Tina. I am a registered nurse. I work as a legal nurse consultant in my day job. I work on healing and empowering women in my business that I've just launched. And yeah, we did meet, I think, in some group in 2020 when this was all we were doing.
Colton.
Yeah, my name's Colton, so I've known Nancy for a little bit. We met at a primary care practitioner. She was doing some marketing work for us, and we kind of just stayed in touch, and we just kind of had that connection. We bonded. I currently work specifically in men's health. I've been in the medical field for about 7 years, but it's interesting now. I work in a lot of more enhancing men's sexual health, which is kind of a strange thing for me, but it's become my second nature now. So really like it so far.
I am Hillary Burton. I am an occupational therapist and a professional dominatrix. And I help women shift their lives from drain and burnout and exhaustion to pleasure and purpose.
Very cool. So interesting. And I didn't really plan it this way, but 3 out of the 5 of us are in helping professions. I mean, I guess you could say that I'm in a helping profession too. I help people with their marketing and their personal branding. We were supposed to have a 6th guest today, a matchmaker, but sadly she has the flu, speaking of health, so she wasn't able to join us. So for those of you who have read the show notes, the way I described it is a dominatrix, a single dude, a divorced and remarried woman, a dating coach, who, as I said, we're going to take a beat and have her on in a future show, and a podcast producer walk into a virtual studio. So that kind of sounds like a dirty joke, but it's not. It's really just the vibe of this month, which is all about love, lust, relationships. I've seen a lot of stuff online recently about Valentines Day, which I guess is what I call a fola day, a false holiday, where people hang out with their friends because they're not in a romantic relationship. So let's just start there. What do you, if anything, have planned for Valentine's Day?
Nancy, that's a great point. We're just jumping in here, but Valentine's Day. I mean, here's the thing. That's just brunch with your girlfriends. I mean, like we don't need to label it. It's just you're going out to brunch. Like, let's just say, So I always say my personal plans for Valentine's Day. I think that love is year round. I don't need a month or a day. I love my people every day. My family, my friends, my colleagues. I try to show that every day. I don't need one day dedicated to it. Kind of the same way there's certain days that are very meaningful, but this is different. Love should be shown every day.
Love
I don't care if you're Circle K, for God's sake.
Love that.
Be nice to people.
Love. So,
Exactly. Love
Hillary,
that. I was gonna see that same thing.
do dominatrixes, or what is the plural of dominatrix?
Dominatrices.
Dominatrices.
Ooh,
Do they have any special Valentine's traditions?
Not that I know of. I don't have any. I'm single right now, so I will be participating in Valentine's Day.
So do tell, because I know our listeners and our viewers are probably dying to know, what does a professional dominatrix actually do?
I bring men to their knees. So for me, it is all about the energy exchange and the masculine worshiping the feminine and the dynamics of that. And so I love masculine men who serve me and want to like revere and adore the feminine. So it looks different with everyone. And what I do is very, very specific to me. I'm not most dominatrices. So it's very unique.
Is pain a part of it?
It can be. It can be. So it has to be fulfilling for both parties. And what's fulfilling for me is service and worship from my submissives. And then for my submissives, it just depends on if they want the pain, if they want that complete blank slate, right? Which comes from that physical space that they're in. And so if that's something they're interested in, then we play in that. And if not, it doesn't need to be.
Very cool. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So Tina, you and I had talked about I hate the word journey. I dislike the word journey. I've abolished the word hate from my vocabulary this month. But as a divorced woman, you've ended up finding your person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Divorced twice, actually.
Yeah. So do tell. What is the secrets to your success?
I think finding myself. I think that was the big thing. I was married very quickly back in 95. I'm 53 years old. So I've been around the block a few times. And yeah, married and divorced quickly in 95. Got married again in 2004 and divorced in 2018. And so from dating and from 2004 to 2018, all of a sudden there's these apps, there's all this craziness. I was just completely different world. So I spent a couple years on a lot of crazy dates, a lot of red flags I ignored, but I didn't love myself at the time. So I didn't see the red flags. And if I saw them, I just didn't give a fuck. I was just like, whatever. You know, so
right.
it
happens. We get worn down. And that's where, I love some of the work that Hillary does, because teaching women to view themselves as goddesses and
exactly.
I was just going to say that, like,
as having
everything
value.
stems from the self-worth and, your own internal validation and not that external.
Exactly. And that's what started by doing my Unapologetically You is part of that. Yeah, we are goddesses and we deserve to be treated that way. And I spent a lot of years not being treated that way. And then I finally found myself and spent a year just not dating, not doing anything, loved myself, treated myself as the goddess that I am, and then found him and it reciprocated that. And I don't think I would have found him had I not took that time for myself. So you are what you attract. And I was attracting a lot of nasty because I didn't care about myself.
Yeah. And especially as we get older, I mean, everybody who's listening probably knows by now, I'm going to be 69 on February 10th, which is way closer to 70 than it is to 60. If I met somebody out at a bar or at a concert, they wouldn't necessarily know my age and might pick me up, try to take me home. But the dating apps have really fed into ageism, lack of self-worth, men saying, oh, you're too old for me. And I refuse to lie about my age. So that's why online dating can sometimes really suck when you're over 65. And I don't want to date a guy who spends his entire life playing golf or pickleball and playing with his grandkids. I am a proud
cougar. My boyfriend's 8 years younger than me, and I got him a t-shirt our first Christmas together that says cougar bait.
Love it.
We wear that badge proudly.
Yep. So Kyle, as a happily married man.
Yeah, I was going to say, you introduced everyone through their relationship to like sex and relationships. And then and a podcast producer. Even though I've been married once for 2.5 years, and that's a unique perspective here. But no, I'm the podcast guy. Let's talk about relationships and
your wife
podcasts.
is listening and going, Fuck him. He didn't even mention me on a Valentine's Day
Yeah.
episode.
Well, I can talk about relationships and podcasts, which is don't date a podcaster. Don't do it. Listen, every mediocre white man in his 30s has a podcast, and that's me, baby.
Did
I
you
don't wanna
see the
misquote the comedian,
SNL
but-
bit about men's health? And this is, Colton, you'll appreciate this. The way they got men to take care of their health is to pretend that they're a guest on a podcast. So they're sitting with the medical staff with mics, and they're like going, "Yay, bro!" Like, it's hysterical. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, because it was.
I don't know the name of this comedian, but you guys got to look it up. But she has a song that says "Stop giving men microphones," where she just goes, seriously. I mean, there is way too many podcasts where they just spew nonsense. I don't know how you can say so much but say nothing at the same time. It
I
genuinely
mean, the
makes like
confidence of it, though. Like, give
Yeah.
me the confidence of a mediocre man. Just they're unstoppable, right? They're like, the world is mine. Women
And when
need
they
that.
get
We need that
together
confidence.
in Broland, when it's all like a group of mediocre men, all like dick swinging and talking about how great they are, that's when I tune out. And no, I'm not man bashing. I'm just, because women can do it too. I mean, I was just having this conversation with somebody this morning about the anti-ageism movement. And I said, I feel like I'm back in junior high school, because we all want the same thing, which is for people to be age blind. But the women who are battling ageism are busy battling each other, which is just unconscionable.
100%.
it's totally universal. I mean, we talk about it because it's more, I think, in men. And I can speak for this as a gay man myself. I mean, dating in the gay world is like a completely different field. You know, I can't go up to the bar and ask some guy like, "Oh, you're attractive," because I don't know that he's going to receive that well, you know, whereas most people feel safe and okay to approach that. So
Yeah.
the dating apps, it feels like a game. You're just swiping like, yes, no. I mean, it's so superficial. And you know, the show Love is Blind is really popular, and I actually really like it because it kind of shows that, you know, people, they come together, they're like connect, and then they see each other and like, I don't like Jennifer. She's kind of
100%. Yeah.
I never would watch Love is Blind, but then one of my closest friends had me and my spouse watch it.
Uh-huh.
I can't stop.
it's addicting. It's
I
a drug.
can't-
It's my heroin.
That
Inject
was my
that into me.
boyfriend too. He used to kind of walk through, and now he sits.
Which I've actually, an important lesson of love I learned from Love is Blind, which I feel like happens a lot, is go with your second choice, because every time they have to, like, if they know who they want, if there's a couple that gets together, they're fine. But if someone's like, oh, I don't know who to choose,
Yep.
they always choose the wrong person.
Always.
Every single time. And in my personal life, I know my quote unquote type is not good for me. My spouse is not my type. My spouse is the quote unquote second choice and is the perfect person for me.
Oh,
so-
you're going to get in trouble for that.
Oh, they know.
Pattern that's
Listen,
not working
Keep
out.
listening.
No, my wife knows damn well that they're not my type.
Well, it depends how you define type, you know, and I
Right. Very
think that's
true.
something that we've been talking about, which, not to continually plug my book, but that is what my first two books are about. It's about really honing in on what's important to you, and what's important to you in your 20s may not be the same thing that's important to you in your 50s or your 60s. And my own daughters have said that to me. I was married 27 years. We were together for 29. We've been divorced about 12. And my grown daughters have said that they think that we are now better people and happier because we're at a different stage, and maybe we just weren't right for each other when we got to this stage. So the whole fallacy of 50-year marriages may in itself be flawed. It may be that you're with a person to have a mortgage and kids, and I don't want to sound like I'm rationalizing, but I really do believe that as a grown-ass woman, my needs now and my priorities now are very, very different than they were when I was 24, 25 years old.
Definitely. This is a factor in how we're treated too. We want to be treated differently. Everything's different between now and in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
I've noticed the youth a lot. We're not getting as married as young as we used to. My parents were married by 20. I mean, they're now divorced, so that didn't work out too well. But regardless, I know a lot of 24-year-olds, a lot of 27-year-olds, they don't want to get married. They're like, why do I need a piece of paper these days? Love is love, and we don't need the government involved in it. I see it almost a shift in the perception of what marriage is, because I'll tell you, it's real easy to get married as somebody that married somebody physically, as an ordained minister, to get divorced. I mean, Tina, you probably can speak to that, right?
Well,
I mean, it's not
100%.
easy.
Yeah, it's very easy
Real
to
easy to get married, not so much divorced.
No, the divorce is definitely not as easy. 50-50 is divorce, 50-50 isn't marriage.
That's right.
But what's interesting is that the divorce rate is much higher for second marriages than for first marriages. It's high for both. It's 50% for first marriages, 70% for second marriages. And I think in part it's because people are so terrified of being alone that until you are alone, until you really know who you are, until you have that sense of self-worth, how can you possibly allow another person into your life?
Yeah, when I got divorced at 45, I had to face the fact I was in a comfortable marriage. There was no abuse. There was anything like that. It was just comfortable, but I wasn't happy. So at 45, I had to face the fact like, hey, I might be single the rest of my life. Would I rather be single the rest of my life and happy by myself, or stay in a basically loveless marriage? So I knew going out of it that, hey, I could be single, and that's hard to face. But you have
And
to
it's
or keep
knowing
yourself.
your worth and not needing a partner for that, knowing that you can fulfill your own passions, your own purpose, your own pleasure, right? And like a partner's great, but
Mhm.
it's knowing that you don't need that. It's not something that you have to have to where you're settling in relationships that, aren't meant for you and
Yep.
places that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, they
Kelly,
don't make you happy. They add happiness.
as a professional dominatrix, when you meet a new man, do you always tell him what you do for a living, or do you pick which profession based on who he is?
I do. I always say it up front because it's a big part of my life. And I've been in relationships where I've told the men up front and they're either like excited about it and super into it and they're like, wow, that's really, really cool. Or it's the opposite. And they're like, that doesn't work for me and I'm not interested in that. And that's okay, because I'm not going to change my life for someone else. And so I don't know if I'm going to be a dominatrix forever. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to evolve. But also, like, this is bringing me passion and fulfillment right now. And I love teaching women the energetics of literally bringing men to their knees. And so it's a part of my life and it's not going to change, And so knowing that that's what I want and that's the path I want, I'll find someone that fits in with that.
When I lived in New York, I connected with a very, very successful retired dominatrix who became a real estate investor. And so she managed dungeons. That was her source of income. I'm like, this is fucking genius. She would go to Manhattan apartment buildings. She would find units that otherwise would have been given to like a live-in superintendent, because they're always like unrentable spaces. She would trick them up as dungeons, and she was making bank. It's sort of like the polar opposite of an Airbnb. It's an Airbnb BDSM.
But Hillary, you make a great point though, because I'll say that, my mother grew up in the 70s. And back then it was like you got a husband, they did the work, you stayed home with the kids. Well, when they got divorced, had they not been married, she would have been screwed. And now she's learning. Now she's she's terrified. I mean, she's like, oh, the battery's out in the car. What do I do? I'm like, get a battery, call AAA. Like, it's not that. I mean, she feels genuinely that she can't support herself. Where I'm seeing women today taking that power back and saying, no, we're going to fix ourselves first. We're going to love ourselves first. And then we're going to find somebody if we want to. Not based on societal recommendations or what the standard is. Really having that self-worth. I think it comes down to self-love is really before you're able to love somebody else, kind of that oxygen mask on before you can help somebody else theory.
And I think we've always been told that, but not did it. Like now I see the younger generation and they're doing it. And I'm like, bravo to them. It took me till I was in my 40s before I realized it.
But Tina, it's not your fault. I mean, you grew up in a generation that was likely different than our generation, right?
Completely. It's weird. Like I see now, like back in my day, I got fired from a job because I went to sleep with my boss back in the early 90s. You know, it's
Now, you know what would
changed.
happen? Your gay colleague would be like, "We're going to HR together, and I'm going to walk in the office, and we're going to advocate for you." I mean, the culture is changing.
Well, just wait. It may be changing back. So don't get too excited yet.
All cyclical, all pendulums. It's just what is the long-term trajectory taken?
The more that women are able to up-level themselves, build their self-worth, their confidence, their respect for themselves, that changes the other end of the spectrum too, because now men need to level up, right? So now we're not settling for the bare minimum. We're not settling for, the bottom of the barrel anymore. And so it's causing everyone to raise their standards. It's causing everyone to bring up their expectations and what they're willing to put into a relationship. And if you don't, then, you're not going to end up with a partner. If that's something you want, then you're going to have to fix it.
Yeah, we were just back in Michigan visiting my family a couple weeks ago, and my parents, Brian's very progressive and he's a great guy. And my mom's like, there's guys out there that actually listen to you, because my dad's, they're old school, and they're still married 53 years. Do the math, I'm 53. And you see what's shocked that there's actually guys out there that, oh, you have an opinion? Yeah, you do, Mom.
There's a large, I guess I'll call it the incel movement, which is, men who are convinced they can't have women. And it's interesting because at least my take on it is women are secondary to the fact that these are men who are just, struggling to find themselves, struggling to do that improvement that is now necessary of them to thrive in this world. And they've chosen, for one reason or another, I'm not going to get into that, instead of engaging in that improvement, to follow men who tell them you shouldn't have to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Like the world is against you. So it just when you said that, Hillary, that men, need to step up in time, it made me think of, I think we've seen a movement of what happens to the men who refuse to step up in kind in a way that helps them and increases their own self-worth as well.
And they probably have small dicks.
Whoa, hey. Now this might be too personal, but as a small dick haver myself, I will let you know we can be fine.
Well, how small is small? We just found out yesterday what the average penis size is, which will be
Wait, what is
validated
it?
this
We need to know.
afternoon.
Nancy, you can't leave me on a cliffhanger.
No, you'll have to listen to our episode this
Okay, all right.
afternoon because it has to be scientifically validated. I got the
That's right,
number off
okay.
of Google, but this afternoon I'm doing a recording with a urologist. He's an MD. He's seen a lot of penises, whatever the plural is, and we'll be able to validate it. But as a woman of my generation, I have discovered that a lot of men my age were just raised in a very, very different era. And a lot of them, their wives didn't work. They stayed home with the kids, and they don't quite know what to make of me as a woman who had a big career, a long commute, 2 kids, was a contributor to the household in many ways. And they say they want a strong, sexy woman, but when push comes to shove,
No, they don't.
Chandelier.
They don't want it. They don't get it.
Some
They don't
find
get
it
it.
intriguing.
Yes.
And that is the whole gestalt behind my new brand. Again, another cliffhanger. But by the time this airs, it will be out in the open. But women no longer have to choose between being sexy and smart, or as I say, fierce and frilly. Like, we can have it all. And there are some men who don't, that freaks them out. And I totally understand it. The same
You
way.
can be in your
Nancy-
masculine and in your feminine energy. You can be in both now. You
Yeah.
don't have to choose one or the other.
Exactly. And
Men too, not just women, but both sexes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
We
to
can play
decide
both
what you're in
roles
the
now.
mood for. I mean, there are times when I
Yep.
could be, believe it or not, as opinionated and as confident as I come across. There are times when I just don't even want to decide where to go for a drink or what to have for dinner or what sexual position to be in. Hope you're not listening, girls. Or
That's how I knew that Brian was right for me, is going on trips. I don't pay attention to where we're even parked. I've always been having to watch, okay, we're parked here. This is our flight. This is this. With him, I pay no attention ever.
That's the beauty of your feminine, because you can just be. The masculine is the doing and the feminine
Yep.
is the being. And so
And that's where I worked on, is stepping into my feminine, because I always had to be masculine. But yeah, it's so nice to be able to go somewhere and be like, I don't even care where we're parked.
That's the beauty of being in your feminine, because the feminine is being and then the masculine is doing.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be responsible for all of the decisions, all of the problem solving. We just want to be and be in our joy and our pleasure and our abundance. That's where women create. That's where, we really thrive.
That's what we're the hummingbird. Like I have my hummingbird necklace because we're in joy. You don't see a hummingbird eating from trash. A hummingbird goes from flower to flower.
Absolutely. And, and just to jump off that real briefly, as a gay man, it's really interesting because we have the ability, obviously, to kind of switch roles. I mean, some men are very set in their ways, but, I've been in lots of relationships where some days I'm like, you're parking, you're getting the traffic, you're dealing with all the, the BS that I don't want to deal with. And some days I'm like, okay, I have an itinerary. Okay, you're going to follow it on 9 a.m. We're here, brunch at this time, but some days I'm like, deal with it. Okay.
So it's kind of nice. I've adopted gay vernacular where, like, in my relationships, I'll say, I'm in the mood to be the top, or like, let me be the bottom. And it's very good shorthand for like, this is how I'm feeling today.
It is. I mean, Nancy, you make a good point. I mean, it really actually does. I mean, like, hey, I'm going to be the masculine one today. You deal with the dog. Take the dog out. Go get the baby. Like, I'm not dealing with this.
I'll do that too. I'll be like, I'm in my feminine right now.
Yeah.
And that's great though. And that's what masculine men who are, they're entrepreneurs, they're alpha, they're doing all of these things a day. That's where that independence and that strength comes in that they're looking for, because they want someone to be able to hold that space for them every now and then. They want a time when they don't have to make a billion decisions. They want a time where they're a blank slate. So that's when we can step in with that strength and be able to carry that.
Yeah, there's no man-woman jobs. It's like you share.
My spouse once told me, I want to try like bondage, not for any kinky purposes, but because it seems like less work. Because I don't have to deal with my hands if they're tied up.
And on that happy note, let's just quickly go around the salt box, as we call it, and tell our listeners and our viewers where they could reach you. First, I'll give Kyle a huge endorsement. He has been producing my podcast now for a few months. He's my right-hand person, my cheerleader, my stress reliever when I'm freaking out about, like today we were running late and couldn't get a hold of one of our guests, but he calms me down. So thank you for all you do, Kyle. If people want to start a podcast or follow you in your podcast, how can they find you?
Yeah, you've got 2 different places. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, you can check out deckerpods.com. I offer free 30-minute consultations to talk about literally any aspect of your podcast. And I will only mention my services if they're relevant. So it's not one of those, I'm going to pitch to you for 30 minutes. It's genuinely talking about what you want. If you want to follow my very unkinky role-playing, you can check out questfriendspodcast.com, where me and 3 of my best friends tell stories about life in a world where the realm of the dead is only a plane ride away.
I have my Instagram, unapologetically_you0104. It's, like I said, female empowerment. A lot of the masculine, feminine energies and just getting to, like we cut, so exactly what we've talked about. A lot of what Hillary does, but just minus the bondage. It's really a lot of stepping into your power. And no webs yet, but maybe we can do a collaboration.
There you go.
But yeah, just a lot of that is coming. Right now I work mostly with women, but I will be opening out to men too. So I love empowering women. But in empowerment as in stepping back into your feminine as well. It doesn't necessarily mean empowering like woo all the time.
First of all, I don't have much to plug, but I'm going to try my best. So you can hit me up on Instagram. So it's going to be my first name, Colton, and then M as in Mary, 7. So Colton M7 on Instagram. And then I work for a franchise. So if you want to come see me in person and get your sexual health in order, if you're a man, Game Day, Men's Health, Central Scottsdale, feel free to come see me and we'll take care of you. So not much to plug, but
and that's
I like to talk to people.
A growing category that ties into what we were just talking about, because ED and low testosterone is becoming a real thing, starting younger and younger.
It's a problem. We're seeing statistics now that we're seeing 10 to 20% dropping year by year. I mean, I have patients that are in their 20s with low testosterone, and we don't know why. We have theories, but it really is becoming a problem. And a lot of men are doing it unsafely through gyms, and it's causing strokes, heart attacks, things if it's unmonitored. So I highly encourage regardless if it's through me because I don't make any, money off this, but go to a doctor if you're going to get on testosterone or thinking about it. That would be my message to the viewers today, to really take care of yourself and overall your mental health and all that good stuff.
And last but not least, Hillary.
You can find me anywhere at Goddess Guidance Official. That is my website. That's my TikTok, my Instagram. My TikTok tends to be a little bit edgier. So if you want the raw, edgy life of a dominatrix, you can find me there. And then my Instagram is very much feminine, masculine energies, balancing dynamics, and the dynamics of dominant, submissive in that as well.
And Hillary just did an amazing photo shoot. You're my guide for my personal brand photo shoots. I'm inspired now to do my next one. Already mentally picking out the outfits. Kyle will know yesterday when we recorded 10 episodes, I had 10 different outfits, each one calibrated to...
Our podcast room was also a changing room.
That's the way it should be. You were in your feminine. You were feeling it. You're doing you. I love that.
Exactly. And you can find me at Age Blind. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. And by the time this airs, the big reveal will have happened. So not going to say anything yet, but I will be very, very easy to find. And I'm going to be talking about all kinds of wild, weird, kinky, out there stuff. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, usually the way we start out is with an appearance in the SLTbox, this episode. And then if I think that our listeners are really interested in what you have to say, because I'm a big statistics geek, then I will book you for a solo episode. We record pretty much every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, and drop a new episode every week. So keep on listening, keep on supporting, support all of my guests, check them out online, follow them, have a wonderful Valentine's season. And as Colton said, every day is Valentine's Day. So peace out and love.
Yes.